Welcome back. For this video, I want to talk about leading a discussion in a grow group. See, when we put together the material, the discussion guide, we try to come up with good questions that will spark conversations. Now, the ultimate goal is for the conversation to kind of take a little bit of a life of its own. You see, if all the questions we include are yes/no questions or fact-based questions, what did this say? Then it's going to be a very, very short conversation. So we want to include a lot of questions like why. Why is one of my favorite questions, and it's a very helpful question when trying to spark conversation. I don't want to know just what you believe, do you agree or disagree, but why? Why do you? Why kind of probes a little bit deeper. It's deeper than who, what, when, where. But why starts to get to the heart. So I encourage you, as you're doing your discussion, don't be afraid to ask the why questions. And here's the thing. Most of our day, we are so busy, caught up with the who, what, where, when, that we don't always have margin in our life to take a step back and ask why. Why do we believe something? Why did God do what he did in the Bible? And so that might make people pause a little bit before they answer. And for some people, we get very awkward around silence. We want to throw out an answer and immediately have somebody answer us back. Sometimes in your discussions, you might come across a question that makes people think. And they gotta take 10, 15, 20 seconds to collect their thoughts before they can continue. Don't be afraid of awkward silences. Now, awkward silences for too long, that can be a problem. So when you come across one of these where you throw out a question, like a why question, and you give people space, let them sit with it for a little bit, then maybe you have to rephrase the question to give people a little bit more time to collect their thoughts or a greater understanding. So why questions, awkward silences, this is all part of the conversation. You also want to ask some probing questions sometimes. What do you mean by that? Can you reflect on that a little more? Can you go a little deeper on that? When all we're getting is just kind of surface, quick answers, well, that doesn't get down deeper. Now, ideally, when people trust one another, when people feel comfortable, we get some back and forth where person A says something that stirs something in person B, and they add, which then person C adds to it. This I love, and when I'm leading a discussion, I will let back and forth like that go. Just be careful not to let it get too far off topic. If, for example, we're talking about Psalm 23 with the Out of the Shadow series, and people end up talking about the rapture and the book of Revelation, we're going to want to rein that back in. Not because it's a controversial topic people disagree on, but because the further astray we let the conversation wander, the harder it is to rein back in. So we do want to stay on topic, but we want to let the Holy Spirit move. And sometimes the Holy Spirit has some different plans than we do. Now, some other good questions for probing and for going deeper is, how do you feel? How do you feel about something? Now, we're not driven by our emotions, but especially when you're talking about the book of Psalms, sometimes it is helpful to talk about our emotions. That is part of who we are. So how do we feel that God is our shepherd? Do we care? Are we so jaded or so caught up in our world that it doesn't resonate? Or does it move us? And ultimately, we want to get the conversations to the point of action. See, we're not just teaching the head, and we're not just exploring the heart. Ultimately, we want to talk about, what do we do now? If there's one question I can give you to make sure you hit every single week with your group is, what do we do now? What difference does this make Monday through Saturday? Okay? How do we live this out? Application questions. Don't let people slide away from those. Now, in a lot of groups, you're going to have some people who are more comfortable talking out loud. And you have some people who are more comfortable sitting back and listening. Sometimes you're going to have to tell the major talkers, okay, we want to hear from somebody else now. Okay? And we try to do this gently and respectfully. We don't want to, hurt somebody's feelings when we're saying that, but to make sure we give everybody a chance to talk. And sometimes the quiet talkers, sometimes we use that as an excuse. I can hide and other people are talking for me, so I can get away with just being here and not participating. Sometimes we look them in the eye and say, what do you think? And help draw them out a little bit, because then they can learn that this is a safe space to talk. One last thing. Make sure your group respects confidentiality. What's said in the group stays in the group, barring if it's something that legally somebody's a danger to themselves or others. You understand, but when we're talking about how we feel and talk about our struggles or our doubts, we don't go and share those with other people. Even prayer requests, I'd encourage you, make sure you ask for permission before passing that along. Even to the pastoral staff, to say, do you mind if I share this with Pastor John, Pastor Sam, so they can be praying as well? Because trust can be hard to come by, can be so easily broken. Now, if somebody confesses to murder or that they are thinking about hurting themselves, that is a different story. But for the most part, we respect the confidentiality. What's said in groups stays in the group, not to go around, and you may have to remind your group of that a few times. All right? So again, this is not rocket science. It is a conversation. And when we let the Holy Spirit move in our conversation, some really amazing things happen. So I'm excited to see what He's going to do with you and your group. God bless.